Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Thank you for listening to Your Working Life, my podcast series featuring thought leaders in the career and personal growth arena. Now, I know that you spend a significant portion of your life at work, so I'm on a mission to provide you with tools, inspiration, and resources so you can enjoy your career and love your life. And I'm so thrilled to welcome my special guest, Lisa Orrell. Lisa, welcome to the show today.
Hi, Caroline. Thanks so much for having me. I'm
Oh,
looking forward to speaking with you.
yes, I am too. I'm dying to dive right in. I'm very excited about your fourth book, which is called Your Employee Brand is in Your Hands. But I want to tell our audience a little bit about you before we dive into a juicy conversation. Lisa, you're known globally as the generation's relations and leadership expert, and you're highly in demand as a speaker, a certified success coach, a thought leader, and you're an award-winning author of 4 books, all of which can be found on Amazon: Millennials Incorporated, Millennials into Leadership, and Boomers into Business. And as I mentioned, your fourth book, which I'm particularly excited about, Your Employee Brand is in Your Hands. And I know this just came out in April, so congratulations on the new book.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about it.
Good, good. So what prompted your career as the generation's relations and leadership expert?
Well, it spun from I owned a marketing agency in the San Francisco Bay Area for about 20 years. I started it when I was 25, worked with a lot of VC funded startups all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And I started researching the millennials, also known as Gen Y, as a consumer group so that I could effectively educate my clients on how to best market to them. And within a short period of time, I'd be sitting in meetings with VPs of marketing and directors of marketing and product development, and they'd start going, okay, that's great about them as consumers, but I've got 3 millennials on my team and they're driving me nuts.
How do I
Or,
work with them? Yeah.
yeah, how do I work with them? And, oh, hey, we need to connect you with our HR and recruiting department because we need to better recruit and manage and retain that talent. So I quickly realized that my first book was not going to be about the millennials as a consumer group as I had originally anticipated, but rather the one that you referred to, Millennials Incorporated, which is all about how companies can better attract, recruit, and manage and retain the millennial generation. And that just led into a whole floodgate opening. And at that point, I was kind of getting burnout on the agency life and running that and all that fun stuff. And so it opened up the door to what I wanted to enter into a new career, which was writing books as well as doing professional speaking engagements. So that's
Good
what
for
I've been
you.
doing now. Yeah, I've
Well,
been doing that now for about 6 years.
well done. And I'd love to hear about a career reinvention. So bravo, my dear, right up my alley. Always glad to hear that you landed on your feet and you're thriving. Well done.
Thank
So,
you.
so let's talk a little bit about personal branding for employees, which is the focus of your new book. I'm particularly passionate about personal branding, and I love the bent of this book for employees within an organization. So unpack that for me a little bit. What brought you to this topic?
Well, with my second book, Millennials into Leadership, I wrote the book for the millennials on how to be young, effective, respected leaders in the workforce. So did a lot of workshops on that, all about, leadership and management principles, getting them into a leadership mindset very early on versus having them feel like they had to wait until they were in a more of a director or senior VP
Right.
type role to get that mindset. And one of the components of a workshop that I do for them it spent like maybe 15 minutes on the importance of personal branding, and that always became a major strong focal point that they were all excited about. And I decided, I'm now going to turn that into its own 3-hour workshop and focus on how employees can focus on their personal brand, because typically people have always had it in their mind that personal branding is for people who are self-employed or for
Mm,
politicians or
yeah.
people who are in the mainstream public eye. And you can take those principles and put them into how, if you're an employee who is interested in standing out at work, regardless of what age, it's not just for millennials. People who attend my workshops range anywhere from 21 years old to 60 plus, about what you can be doing to better stand out at work. And for some people, they want more notoriety within their industry as well. They're very happy being employees. They don't intend on starting their own businesses, but they want more notoriety. They want a little bit of celebrity in their industry so that they can also perhaps be attracting media interviews and invitations to speak at industry conferences and trade shows. So it plays both roles. It's not only just how you can position yourself to be known more at work, particularly if you work at a large company. I've conducted my personal branding workshop for employees solely at eBay, just eBay alone, over 23 times. I've certainly done it for, Wells Fargo, J&J, and a lot of other big companies, but that's how important that they find that topic. And over 23 times just for one company, and every single time the diversity in age as well as gender that comes to the workshop for their own specific reasons is always, it just fascinates me. And I have so many people that come up to me when they're, afterwards at around 40, 45, 50 years old that sincerely say, geez, I really wish people were
Yeah.
really talking about personal branding back when I
Earlier.
was in my
Yeah.
20s, because it certainly would have made a big difference in my career.
Oh, I think it's essential. And it reminds me of a quote. There's no reality, only perception, right? And
Hmm.
we have this unique responsibility to put out into the world how we want others to perceive us professionally. And I believe that personal branding is certainly at the heart of that. So, Lisa, flipping back, you talked about the person who commented, gosh, I wish I had this at the beginning of my career. What is an ideal time to start focusing on one's personal brand? Is it too early to start in college? I mean, what's the time that you really need to think about this?
No, well, I'm glad you asked, because a lot of people, like I said, even employees think, well, I shouldn't really be worrying about that. I'm in an entry level position, or I'm in an administrative role. Why should I be worrying about my personal branding? And quite honestly, it should start as early as possible. It's something that I've really been pushing and speaking a lot more at colleges, and getting
Oh,
hired by
great.
universities to come in and speak with college students about their personal branding, as early as, even if they're freshmen, just 18 or 19 years old, right? First semester or first year out of high school in their college career, because the sooner you can get into a leadership mindset and start getting your head around your personal brand about who you are, um, the more it benefits you moving forward, and you start conducting yourself more in a leadership type mindset as well. Becomes a behavior barometer, is what I like to say. It becomes everything that you say, everything that you don't say, everything that you do, and everything that you don't do impacts your personal brand on a day-to-day basis. And every single time someone has contact with you, every single time at work, or for college students at school, anytime someone has contact with you, one of two things happens. Either your personal brand is strengthened, or your personal brand is weakened. And again, that goes back to what I just said, which I love this quote, which was said to me by a senior executive on a panel that I was moderating at a women's leadership conference. And she said, basically, personal branding is impacted by everything you say and don't say, and everything you do and don't do. And that is a very powerful concept that once people get their head around, it's really amazing how it starts adjusting their behavior, not only looking at the things that they need to work on personally, but also focusing on their strengths and bringing those forward.
Thank you for defining that. I love the behavior barometer. That's fantastic. I'm going to tweet that out right now. And what I'm hearing is it's really a hybrid of our emotional intelligence, our behavioral characteristics, and also our subject matter expertise, right? Some particular skill set that we bring in our respective career world. So I thank you so much for that very clear definition. That was very helpful for our
Oh,
listeners, I'm sure.
terrific.
So let's look at the lens of the employer, right? And I know some employers are thinking, okay, this is self-serving for the employee. I don't see how this can help my staff. And I fully disagree. So help me understand, for our employers that are listening, what are your thoughts about that? What's the value of personal branding within the
Yeah,
organization?
Yeah, and I hear you, because I disagree with that as well. And I do get some pushback on people who are like, well, why should we have you come in and conduct a personal branding workshop for our employees? Because, as you said, isn't it a self-serving thing? It's all about them. But the reality is, there is no downside to having as many members in your company or on your team with heightened self-awareness and a willingness to improve themselves, right? I mean, basically, that's the foundation for developing a respected personal brand at work, is not only to get clarity, and this is very key. It's not only about getting clarity on who you are, but it's more importantly getting clarity on who you aspire to be, and
Exactly.
and then making the necessary changes within yourself to conduct yourself accordingly. Do you have a bad temper? Is that something that's part of your personal brand and people identify with you? And if so, are you willing to change that? Because it could be something that maybe got you to a certain point and people were willing to overlook at a certain point in your career, but you might be getting passed over for a significant promotion because they're like, he or she is really good at what they do. They manage okay, but at the level that we want to potentially promote someone into this next role, and we just can't, we can't take the risk because they're too much of a they're too much of a risk in terms of their temperament. And I'll tell you, a lot of times in these workshops I do, one of the questions I ask, and it's whether I've got 25 people in front of me or I've got 500 people in front of me, is how many of you have seen in a professional work environment people in a meeting actually get into a fight, maybe not a
Hmm.
physical altercation, but act completely inappropriately, slamming their hands on the desk, saying things that they regret later or don't regret, and conducting themselves in that way because of temperament. And I would say about 95% of any audience I ask that of raises their hand,
Sure. We can all
right?
think about that experience, yeah, with
Yeah,
someone.
absolutely.
Fascinating. Fascinating. You know what I'm really appreciating too, and I just want to unpack further for our audience. This is a process, right? There's a trajectory of your personal brand, and the beauty is it's ever evolving, ever changing. So for our younger or more entry level professionals, they're showing potential for leadership down the road. And for the more seasoned professionals, it's a continual process, right? It's not a one and done. So thank you for that, the evolution of the personal brand. So Lisa,
Yeah.
in your new book, Your Employee Brand is in your hands, pardon me. You've got a section with tons of tips about how to promote your personal brand at work and in your industry, for example. So share a few of those tips with us today.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I find when I ask how many people uh, want to have more recognition at work. They want to have more notoriety at work, right? And let's say it's at a very large company like an eBay or a Johnson and Johnson, where you're one employee of thousands of
Mm-hmm.
employees. And it's like, what are any of you involved in internal networking groups? Like a women's leadership, all the different diversity
Sure.
groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
And are you involved in them? And very few hands go up.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, so one of the things that you can be doing to promote and expand your personal brand for more awareness within the organization is start in your own organization. Join those different diversity groups, be a part of those types of things to get to know people. Because what happens, especially in mid-sized to larger companies, is you might have 10,000 employees, but your department might only have 25 people in it.
Right.
And you find you can look back after a month or two and go, my gosh, the only people that I speak to and see on a regular basis are these same 25 people. I don't know the people in the department down the hall or up on the second floor or the fourth floor or over in the building next door. You need to take that time to do that networking internally to get more recognition. Another thing to do is to be able to pat other people on the back,
Yeah.
because that's something that very rarely happens in a meeting. You can say, hey, I just want to take a moment to thank Caroline for her help this week on helping me accomplish this tight deadline. I couldn't have done it without her. Not only does that make people take notice of like, wow, that was a really cool thing to say, that was really nice. However, you start doing that on not every single moment, but on a somewhat regular basis, people start doing it for you. And that's
Yes.
the way they start patting you on the back in front of others and even behind your back, but in a positive way. And all of a sudden they become brand advocates, brand ambassadors for you. And they're expanding out things that maybe you did work extra hard on a project and stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning, 5 days in a row, but no one on your team knew it. Right.
Nice.
And maybe even your boss didn't know it, but someone else is willing to come up and say that because of something nice that you've done for them. Right.
Excellent. I love those suggestions. Did you have another? I sensed that you were going to share another.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I've got like 9 trillion of
I'm
them,
sure
but
you do. Give us one more. Give us one more, Lisa.
another one is to be aware and take a look if you're not in your corporate communications department, or whether it might be a marketing department, is take a look at what you guys have going on internally within your organizations in terms of internal employee newsletters and those types of things. What can you be contributing in terms of articles to showcase your expertise as a topic expert for more notoriety within your organization? And that's the same type of strategy that you can take for folks that want to have more recognition in their industry outside of their company. In order to become deemed as a thought leader, you have to be staying up on trends, and you have to be writing and contributing to blog posts and participating in social media conversations and industry focused groups and blogs in order to have the media as well as meeting planners of industry conferences and association events to even recognize who you are. The bottom line is, if you don't position yourself as a thought leader by sharing interesting perspectives and insights, no one's going to have a reason to want to interview you or have you speak at their next event, because you're not being positioned as someone who has anything new and fresh to say. That's how you position yourself as a thought leader outside of work, is like I said, staying up on those trends and participating actively. It's all about participating persistently and consistently, and also making sure that your personal LinkedIn profile is very current, not just for job searching. You could be very happy with where you are and you're not even looking for a job. But when was the last time you took a look at your LinkedIn profile and updated it with current recommendations, as well as keywords that the media and event planners might grab onto, and your profile would come up when they're doing searches to find experts to interview and or book for a speaking engagement? So you have to, as an employee, you've really got to focus on your LinkedIn profile, not just as the thing that you do when you're unhappy and wanting to find a new job, but because you aren't self-employed, chances are you don't have a personal website. So your LinkedIn profile really truly does become your personal and professional website that serves a lot of purposes.
Excellent wisdom, Lisa. I love all of those. I'm taking copious notes so we can include this when we post your podcast. Great stuff. And the common thread here is that we as individuals need to take control. The onus is on each and every one of us to be engaged, right? To be seen and heard in
Mm-hmm.
our organizations, to become brand ambassadors for others so they can reciprocate. And I so appreciate this practical advice. Tell me how we can buy your book.
Well,
Or
the main
books,
place.
plural.
Books, yeah. All 4 of the books are the predominant place that they're on all major online retailers, but majority of the sales and orders come through Amazon. And all 4 of the books, including the new one, there are print and Kindle versions available. So you just simply go to Amazon and just type in my name, or go ahead and type in "Your Employee Brand is in Your Hands," and you'll see that you've got your both options for print or Kindle.
Excellent. And Lisa, you are very active on social media, which I celebrate. Tell us how we can follow you online, and tell us about your blog.
Yeah, well, simply by going to my website. My website is the Orrell, which is my last name, ORRELL group. The OrrellGroup.com is my personal and business website. There's a link to my blog there where there's all kinds of tips about not only, excuse me, generational dynamics, but career advice and all kinds of different stuff that pertain to excelling in your career. And then you can also find me on Twitter at Generations Guru is my Twitter handle, Generations Guru. And LinkedIn, you can find me at Lisa Orrell. So those are just a couple of the different ways that you can find me. And through those, you'll get all kinds of different tidbits and information that hopefully help you with your career path and your success.
Excellent. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us today. I will say that Your Employee Brand is in Your Hands is an extraordinary book. I have read it cover to cover, and I would highly recommend it to all of our listeners today, as well as the other books. So I hope you will check Lisa Orrell out online. She is easy to find. There's some great information out there, and we thank you so much. Lisa, anything else that you want to add before we end our podcast today?
No, just realize that your bosses will only take you so far as terms of being your advocate and helping you move up the ladder. So it's imperative that you do take your career destiny into your own hands. And it really does boil down to initially starting with, again, focusing on creating and revamping and or tweaking your personal brand by looking at not only who you are now, but as I mentioned earlier, who you aspire to be, and being willing to make those necessary changes. And basically, it boils down to it's all on you, and how can you become your own personal publicist to help you with your career path and career growth.
So well put. Lisa Orrell, thank you again, my dear. What a joy to have you on. I wish you great success, and I hope our professional paths cross again soon.
Absolutely. Caroline, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the opportunity to speak with you today.
You take good care. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning into Your Working Life, where my goal is to help you design your career destiny so it doesn't happen by default. True career and life satisfaction is possible, and it's time to embrace what you love doing so you can do more of it. I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Take good care.